Hello everyone, welcome to Sermon Prep with me, Father Brett. Great to have you along. This week we are celebrating the 33rd Sunday of Ordinary Time in Cycle A. We have only one more Sunday left before we begin Advent, Christ the King, next Sunday. But before we get to that, let's look at the readings for this 33rd Sunday. So the first reading is taken from the book of Proverbs, chapter 31, verses 10 to 13, 19 to 20, and then 30 to 31. The psalm is Psalm 128. The second reading is taken from St. Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 5, verses 1 to 6. And then our gospel is from Matthew's gospel and follows on directly from last Sunday. Matthew 25, verses 14 to 30. There is the option for a shorter gospel reading, but it's very short, and I don't think it conveys enough of the sense, the theme, the focus, the teachings that I think we need to be getting from the longer version. So we will read the longer version at Mass this Sunday. So what's the gospel? The gospel is the story of the landowner who goes away for a long time and then gives three people different amounts of money called talents. And when he returns, he wants to know what they've done with it. How have they grown their money, their talents? Of course, we today would use that word talent and apply it to our God-given talents. So not our money necessarily, but our giftedness. But of course, in the time of Jesus, a talent was like a rand, a unit of currency. The landowner is clearly Jesus. And remember, we've touched on this idea that the early Christian community, Matthew's community, was expecting Jesus to come back chop chop, and he didn't. And so he was away for a long time. And so the idea of this property owner who's gone away for a long time, leaving the community with gifts that they need to grow and develop while he's away, expecting his return, is something that they would have tried to have emphasized, because Jesus was taking longer than they thought to come back. Okay. It really is telling us that we've got to act. We've got to live our discipleship, grow the kingdom in this interim period between the ascension and the second coming. It is going on longer than anybody had thought. What are we doing to make it productive, effective? What are we doing to live as disciples of Jesus? I found this quote from a scripture scholar called John Meyer, and he wrote a book on Matthew's Gospel. And I think he sums up this parable really well. So do you mind if I read it? It's quite good. The fact that both servants received the same reward shows that what is valued is not one's accomplishments in a quantitative sense, but the fidelity of one's commitment, as mirrored in one's wholehearted activity. So those who were given talents and grew them, they receive. And it's not about, as John Meyer says, it's not about how much they receive. It's that they do receive because they have been caring and nurturing their gifts. He goes on to talk about the third servant then. The anxiety-ridden servant is condemned as evil and inactive. Indeed, evil precisely because he is inactive. With a crazy sort of logic, this third servant puts forward the demanding nature of the master as the reason for doing nothing. It is crazy, isn't it? Why would he use the fact that the master is demanding? Why would he use it as an excuse? For doing nothing, out of fear of failure, he has refused even to try to succeed. I think the whole idea of accountability comes in here. Our commitment to the gospel, to the kingdom, to our baptismal promises, that we are going to be held accountable. And so we have to be committed. And I think if we consider what commitment involves, we would see that, and we've spoken about this in our parish, a commitment to worship, to gather, to pray, to be open to being led by the Spirit. I think we need to be committed to that. And the more we are, the more we're able to grow the kingdom. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is a commitment to our faith, to know what we believe and to stand up for what we believe. We say the creed every Sunday. Do we let it sink in? Do we know what we're saying? Is this truly how we live? So I think a commitment to worship and growing and living in the Spirit, a commitment to our faith and growing in knowledge of our faith, and then also to the commandments, to what God expects of us. Are we committed to that? And so I think if we fail in those three areas, in our commitment to worship and being Spirit-filled, commitment to our faith and knowing our faith, and a commitment to doing what God asks us, then I think we're not living fully what Jesus expects of us. And I think we need to be held accountable. Okay, so there's some thoughts on that. Of course, the first reading from the book of Proverbs, remember Proverbs is wisdom literature, and we've been speaking about wisdom literature a bit. Last Sunday, we had a reading from the book of Wisdom. And the theme of wisdom as a woman, wisdom as feminine, is again here in this example. And the idea of wisdom as a good, faithful wife. I think we mustn't get sucked into a sort of, what's that saying about women, that they're just servants? We could go down there, but I don't think we need to. I think what we're seeing there is the recognition that people who are wise are hardworking, committed, growing, developing. I really think that's what we should focus on in this reading from Proverbs. We're given two images, aren't we, of a woman who is faithful, a woman who is committed, a woman who works hard, and that's one we need to value. And the idea of her being a jewel, that's precious. I think that's the second image. Okay, and wisdom, people who are wise are like that. They're precious, they're valuable, and they are productive and committed, and they're able to be held accountable. Okay. The second reading from St. Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. Again, we've got two images here. Hey? We've got the image of a thief in the night, and we've got the idea of labor pains. So the suddenness of the return of God, the return of Jesus, those two images. And we also see that very, very common contrast between children of light and children of darkness. In religious literature, not just Christian religious literature, other religious literature at the time would have used similar sorts of images. We know, for example, that image of children of light, children of darkness is found also in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay? So, yeah, a reasonably common image. But again, this idea of being fruitful, doing things, being held accountable, being committed during this time. Those are people of light. And we need to be like that because we don't know when he's coming back. Okay, so there's some ideas for you to think about as you prepare for this coming Sunday. I hope you will join us. It'll be great if we could have you along with us, but we will be live streaming the 9 a.m. Mass if you can't make it. Okay, God bless. Bye-bye.